Paul Reinhardt is the co-founder for Smart Panda Tools. He has 20 years experience in putting in PeopleSoft Campus Solutions as a consultant. He has done implementations all across the United States. His focus really is very heavily in student records, which makes him quite an expert in transfer credit. He has deep functional and technical experience. He helped found Smart Panda Tools back in 2018, and he's based in Los Angeles. Steve Hahn is a senior director in the student strategy at Huron. He has 20 years in education. He's worked at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, in various leadership roles, including he wound up at the end there as vice provost for enrollment management at UW-Madison. He is passionate, and I know this from experience with them both. They both are passionate on these topics. Steve is very passionate about proving access to higher education and really making that more affordable and innovating around the student experience. He has worked at all levels of the university admissions and academic services, real good focus on information technology and enrollment management. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them on and off over the years. They have great deep knowledge and expertise in this areas. And I think passion really does cover the word to describe what they feel about these topics. So, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you and take it away, and good luck.
Okay, thank you. Let me know if you, for any reason, we're having any audio video difficulties. I've been listening to the session so far today, and man, this is just fantastic idea. It's a fantastic group of presenters. I think the topics are just really popping and sizzling, and I'm really excited to follow the presentation we just listened to, because we're really starting, I think, to get now into the meat of this topic, right? The summit is called Enrollment Sustainability. And we just heard topics of, recruiting your students, retaining them. How do you achieve your campus goals in terms of your student headcounts? The right mix of students. And so that's a perfect lead into our topic, which is are you transfer friendly? The irony, in a way, of moving to transfer credit now is that transfer students are oftentimes highly motivated. They are intentionally seeking out your school. They really want to succeed at your school. They want to enroll at your school. And yet, oftentimes they are not admitted. They are not given the same financial aid packages. And their success rates, their access to information and their success rates are historically very poor. And so we think this is a great opportunity, actually, in today's shifting marketplace. We're starting with a story here, and it's a story really of lost opportunity. This is a story of enrollment sustainability that is in fact not being sustained. And so we're going to talk about tools that you have at your disposal today to turn this around into a much brighter picture, both for the students and for you as schools and enrollment managers. This first slide here talks about the obstacles that transfer students and really students of all kinds have faced moving through the higher education system. If you look at over the past couple of decades at the percentages of students who successfully move from high school to community college, or those who successfully move from community college to four-year schools, these percentages are very poor. And I've just got a few high-level statistics here that kind of show this issue. But behind all these numbers are individual students, right? These are personal stories. Many times the students are first-generation students. They come from disadvantaged backgrounds. They're adult students who have jobs or trying to raise a family. And so there's individual stories here. There's also an economic impact to our nation, right? Our workforce development and our economy are hindered if we can't allow every individual to maximize their potential to contribute. There's a social justice element here as well. And so let's look at a couple of these numbers. Students lose 43% of their credit in transferring. We have the sources down here if you want to chase down these numbers. So think about that. If you're a student and you've gone to school for a couple of years and then you transfer, trying to pursue that 4-year degree, and you're told that 43% of your credits are not accepted, I mean, you've basically lost maybe an entire semester of work. We'll look at a couple other numbers here. Transfer is much much more common than anyone thinks. So 38% of college students, this is all college students, 38% of them transfer at least once within 6 years. Those who transfer more than once, 2 or 3 times, personally, I'm included in that number, is also a fairly high number. We already saw this one about the credit loss. Here's a study that was done a few years ago. 1 million students who started off at a 2-year school. Out of that 1 million students, only 350,000 received a degree, and only 60,000 had a associate's or certificate's degree when they transferred. You start with 1 million and you end up with 60,000, right? This is the kind of numbers. We won't go through all of these. When they move from for-profit schools to public schools, it's even worse. Websites that do not list articulation agreements. And we'll end with this one. Community college students that transfer and receive a bachelor's degree in 6 years, look at this number, 14%. That's about 1 out of 6. Okay, so with that, starting with that bleak picture, we're going to move on to what can we do? What things, exciting things that are being done now to improve the situation? I'm going to hand it off to my good friend, Steve.
Thank you, Paul. And thanks to the organizers for an invitation to participate in this wonderful event. It's great to be here with all of you. I would like to talk about transfer students. But if you define transfer students as those who are students carrying transfer credit, I think that the problem or the issue, if you will, is much more mainstream than we are talking about. And I would like to do what we can here today to start a shift in how we talk about transfer students and get away from the paradigm of a transfer student who has somehow pursued an alternative path to their education or to their degree. I would submit that transfer students and transfer credit are the new normal, and that pressures and currents of student mobility, which were always in play even before COVID, were vastly accelerated during COVID, because all of us have put our educational product online this year. And after the pandemic is over, which we hope will be soon, and we return to not what was normal, but move ahead to a new normal, much of what's online will stay that way and should stay that way. So the options for students have momentously increased. And in this sense, most students, or many students at least, are technically transfer students. When I was the enrollment director at UW-Madison, in a recent graduating class, a vast majority of students who graduated that year had transfer credits brought in. They were either brought into their freshman experience already, or they were acquired during their undergraduate career there. And so their concerns and the concerns of what we used to call, transfer students, or this other kind of student, which I hope we're not talking about anymore, their concerns are exactly the same. They would like to know what will transfer. More than that, they would like to know what will actually apply to their degree and make progress for them. They would like the evaluation of their credits to be done in a timely fashion so that the academic and their record can be reflective of the up-to-date information at all moments in time. So, so these are the expectations of transfer students. In fact, I would submit these are the expectations of all students. As students become the general contractors of their own careers, and they seek their solutions from among a variety of different institutions. One last point I'll make on this slide is that admissions directors and enrollment directors are really good at the demographics of the high schools and the recruitment possibilities of their hinterlands. And I would submit that as we look around for recruitment and enrollment possibilities, that transfer students, are relatively available to institutions who are doing what the students are expecting. Transparency around articulation agreements, evolution of articulation agreements into matriculation agreements, around admissions into the expectation of matriculation. Clarity around what will transfer, applicability, maybe the ability, certainly the ability to do what if planning. And the good news is that all of those things are under the control of the folks in our audience here today. All of the academic administrators have the power to make this more transparent, have the power to make the rules of the road, if you will, more clear for their students. And transfer students are thus more likely to think with affection about institutions which give them that clarity and allow them to plan. So I think it's a good bet to bet on solutions around student mobility, and for the reasons that were on the slide here. I would also say that in addition to those reasons, we should all be talking about this in the next year and the next 5 years, because it's the right thing to do for students. It is the mission of these institutions, all of our institutions, be they 4-year or 2-year or any institution, to facilitate transfer. State funding is tied to public institutions. And in fact, in many cases, state funding is tied to transfer goals and transfer students as well. It's the right thing for your competitive advantage. And on the reverse, failing to do so costs in terms of student loan debt and in terms of the opportunity costs for lost enrollment for your school. Paul, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Steve. And I just wanted to say how happy I am to have Steve sharing the stage with me here. Steve, with his wealth of background, is in higher education, really on a national level, brings some insight and strategy here that's really quite remarkable. I'm going to carry on with talking about why it's to your advantage, why it's to the school's advantage to focus on transfer student success. And as we said, really just any student who has a prior educational history, could be an adult student, could be a swirling coronavirus student. It's to your advantage, your competitive advantage, to serve this market. One of these is cost savings, and we'll go through these fairly quickly. We have over here on our website, smartpandatools.com, have a map which I had a lot of fun putting together. We won't go into all these numbers, but we talk about how we got these numbers. But if you crunch the numbers purely on, this is just the national cost of hand entering transcripts. If you do the math on the likely number of transcripts that are being sent around the country based on transfer students, so we're not even including, first-time admits, we reach a number of $34 million a year just on the manual processing. So in the state of California, where I live, that's a staggering almost $5 million a year on just manually processing transcripts. So there's a huge cost element here. Let me go back to but it's more than just cost savings. It's actual competitive advantage for your entire institution. I'm going to jump over here to another tool we have on our website called our interactive assessment, self-assessment. So I won't go through this whole thing, but what we're showing here is that if you're transfer friendly, or if you're not transfer friendly, it's impacting every stage of the student's journey towards your school. It's impacting your recruiting effort. When the public or a possible applicant cannot readily see which courses you may accept, then they're likely, to consider some other school which will tell them which transfer courses you'll accept. When they actually do apply to your school, again, how quickly do you record that transcript? How quickly do you acknowledge it? How quickly do you turn around a detailed articulation of those credits? So when you do not quickly turn around a detailed articulation of the credits, then you're hurting all these other facets. When the student goes to enroll, they don't know what enrollments that they should choose next, because as we know, the next enrollment that they need to choose may have a prerequisite or maybe a built on a transfer course that they're bringing in. So the whole pipeline, your financial aid team on your campus is often struggling with preparing accurate packages and preparing accurate financial plans for transfer students because they don't have the information, the transfer background in a timely fashion. Your advisors as well are not prepared if you're not able to handle transfer students in a timely fashion. We talked about the revenue model here, but also technology makes this more possible than ever. So only as recently as 10, 15 years ago, there were good reasons why transfer credit was difficult. But with the integration tools that we've had now, with the data transportability tools that we've had now, APIs, there's no longer a reason or a technological barrier to really making these solutions happen. So let's start talking about then, what does a solution look like? This has been a plague on the higher education system for a long time. What can we do now to turn this around? And I'm going to hand it back over to Steve to talk about the policy and collaboration elements of the solution.
Yeah, thank you. And this was a question in the chat too. I think two things on the policy front, articulation agreements should, where they are extremely well articulated, could graduate or evolve, if you will, into matriculation agreements, which remove, no matter how well articulated, remove the black box of admissions, the uncertainty, and set the expectation in the source school for certain matriculation. And I think really well articulated agreements can do that. So there's an evolution there, articulation to matriculation. There needs to be an evolution from school to regional arrangements, or even national consortiums. And I think Paul's got a link at the end of our slides here for some initiatives and on a more national front there. But I think also, and I'll say about this, Paul, I think also is that this needs to move from out of the administrative realm and into the faculty realm, faculty to faculty arrangements, where there can be discussion around course requirements and course objectives, can do a lot on maybe even less than school to school, maybe even discipline to discipline basis, can remove a lot of clarity or unclarity around goals and objectives that can smooth the way for articulations narrow and wide to follow.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, so there's a lot here, right? And so Steve was talking about the policy and the collaboration that opens the door to transparency of the student journey. There is a lot of positive work going on here, a lot of headlines in this area. You've seen this, entire regions of schools are putting together transfer agreements. And we do have some links at the bottom here. We have some links to Aspen Institute. There's a link here to an effort by the Gates Foundation. When Bill Gates puts his eye on something, I think we feel that there's going to be something big happening there. We do want to talk about the technology too. And so there's good reasons technology-wise why there's solutions that are available. We do have on our website here a list of the solutions that we offer from a technology perspective, but there are things like the digital student record, right? So that the world of paper transcripts or even PDF transcripts we're moving rapidly into a world where students will be able to move, they'll own their own digital enrollment record, and they'll be able to move that around at will from one school to another rather than having to, request a bunch of transcripts to be sent. The publishing and automation of transfer equivalencies and articulation agreements, they'll be online, they'll be automated, they'll be public. And so students at every step, or even the general public at every step, can see, if I take this course at a community college in California, I can get credit for this when I go to a CSU four-year school. We're going to wind up quickly here because I know we have some questions. This is important here, automate the mainstream, right? The motto that we've been using for a while is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Higher ed is notorious, admissions and records people are notorious for wanting to get everything just perfect, which is a great motivation. But to really break through on transfer credit, you don't have to have 100% articulation. We know what the math courses are they're bringing. We know what the English courses are that they're bringing. Transfer is highly repetitive. So just go after those courses that you know that you're seeing over and over again and automate those. And finally, we need to be Cis Agnostic. So this has been a big focus of our work. We need to collaborate more here, but we know that if we look at the nation and the students' information systems, there's only a few of them that dominate the marketplace. The Lucian, Banner, PeopleSoft, Genzabar, a few others. We need solutions that will integrate across student information system, because oftentimes the student is starting out at a community college that's on a Lucian product, for example, and moving to a four-year school that's running PeopleSoft or some other system. And so we need to have integrations across those. Yeah, we're going to wind up here now. We do please refer to these articles here. Steve's group has published an article as well. And we want to, so we hope that we've presented here some positive things that you can do. We're very happy to reach out to us. As we mentioned, there's a lot of attention, think tanks and big industry groups focusing on these matters. So if your campus is one that wants to really make progress here, there's a lot of people that you can talk to get some quick wins in place. So we'll stop there and take questions, I think.
Thank you, Paul. That was a great presentation there. I like the pictures across the bottom of all the presidents who were transfer students there. I know you and I had an exchange on several of them. We did have the question about is there nationwide articulation agreements? I think Dan Moran asked, what's being done to provide those nationwide and worldwide articulation agreements for transfer courses. He says he has seen several states with articulation agreements, but nothing unified on a larger scale. Do you see anything like that happening on a larger scale? Any other thoughts on that question?
I mean, Steve probably has some thoughts. I'll tell you, that's been on my mind for a very long time. I think with the industry starting to pay attention to these issues, we will see the emergence of a nationwide concerted effort. Steve, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think the consortia that are mentioned in some of those links represent national efforts towards this. This has been either achieved or in progress in many large state systems with multiple, maybe a flagship and multiple comprehensives. With the, the kind of limitations of geography being removed here, not completely, but I think we're headed in that direction. I think the student expectations of national standards, or at least a national framework for articulation and transfer, would be is going to be in front of us even more than it is already. So the gentleman asked the right question.
Do you feel that soon in coming, that national framework?
I think, again, there needs to be a discussion of the faculty, with the faculty. I think this needs to be moved out of the administrative realm. It needs to stay somewhat there, but also moved into faculty discussions. I know in situations where there was a lack of progress on articulation between system schools or other schools. It is often for the want of lack of complete understanding around maybe one requirement in math or something, where the faculty meeting with the faculty can remove that from maybe the major transfer source and the major transformation, their faculty getting together and removing that barrier. Little moves like that can make great strides in administration's ability to forge these agreements.
That's great. That's interesting. Thank you both very much for everything that you've taught us today on this. This has been a great presentation. This sort of flows really into what Matt is going to host here next. Just really in terms of the pulse of the campus. Matt, I'm going to hand this over to you. And thank you everybody.
Thank you, JTH. Paul and Steve, both of you guys are passionate. We all come from the registrar's office. I'm a proud registrar. And so, I think it comes from that. There's a lot of things that we have to think about, right? There is this accreditation element that we got to think about when new courses are going to start to be unbundled. We have to have these uncomfortable conversations. Courses cannot be just the same way that it's always been. We have to start to understand what are the courses? How do we unbundle them? How do we bring them into a more valuable consumption for our student body? That's when we're going to become really powerful as a nation. I'll be honest, as a registrar's office, my transfer credit, and I just had a call with my old registrar's office, they're in the back office, and really transfer credit is how you start to brand the value of what you do in market. And I'm a big believer, universities and colleges have to start focusing on transfer and how to articulate and how to bring and make it transfer friendly. That's as important as the glossy things that I'm getting from my daughter at these schools. If I'm a transfer student, I need to know, where's my credit coming? How do I make sure that I don't have a transfer decay? The word transfer decay, think about the number of courses that people take that never get applied to a degree. We got to address that first, right? And that's going to be a huge part of it. Just wanted to say thank you for both of you guys. We will have more discussions because I don't think we could do it. I'll be honest, this one session was more people asked to do this session than anyone else. So we certainly know that transfer credit is going to be a big part of it. I want to say thanks for both of you guys for doing this together with us.